That is a good idea with QR codes.
I never said it was a bad idea.
I don't want to do that.
It's not a bad idea. It's just like expensive.
It's just not an
I
idea
was
we're ready
paying
for.
for it. Who cares?
Oh, I mean, if you're buying all of them, then fucking go for it, bud.
Yes, let's get to the real content here.
Yeah, let's get to the actual things of not being in a car wreck and handing somebody a koozie. That is a good idea with QR codes.
I never said it was a bad idea.
I don't want to do that.
It's not a bad idea. It's just like expensive.
It's just not an
I
idea
was
we're ready
paying for it. Who cares?
Oh, I mean, if you're buying all of them, then fucking go for it, bud.
That's what made no sense to me. I was like, look, I'll just grab 500 koozies. I'll give y'all each 100. You pass them out.
Okay.
I'll pass out 300.
That's
and everybody's like, no,
different.
you cannot spend your own money, you piece of.
To be clear, you never said you were spotting that.
I did.
Right.
I said, how are we paying for it? And I said, I've got it.
Did you?
Yes.
Go through the chat right now.
And then y'all were like, no, we should put it into Facebook because the cookies will let everybody know about Facebook ads.
All right, I can't scroll back that far right now, but
Yeah.
I don't remember that being said. You know, there's two of us that don't remember it, then it probably didn't happen.
Well, you amnesiacs, remember some.
Ugh.
Alrighty, folks. It is another edition of Bropinions. We are on episode 9. It is Tuesday, January the 31st. We watched the conference championship games this past weekend. We've got Nikki P and John the Stone on air in the studio. Well, in Zoom, I guess.
In our own individual studios.
Yeah.
AKA my home office.
Wanted to give a special shout out to John the Stone for the new logo and the new looks. Thanks for bearing with us, guys. We are learning as we do this, and I'm getting new stuff going to try to keep the videos interactive with you guys. He also does all of the audio editing to throw this on to Spotify and Apple, everything. Do the YouTube part, and so thanks for the extra time spent.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize that was a problem.
Yeah, that's you, bro.
Yeah. No problem, my friend. Yeah, it's surprisingly easy, but you know we're looking forward to continuing to grow and evolve and see where this takes us. So yeah, happy to do it.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for staying with us, growing with us, and I know we have hit probably 10 or 12 more subscribers in the last week since the last episode. So for everybody new, welcome. And let's dive in on major news going
Hit that subscribe and follow button wherever you're listening or watching.
Absolutely.
Any
Hit
of
that
the,
thumbs
any
up
of the-
too.
Yeah, leave a comment. Tell us how stoogey we are. It's fine. We can take it. Especially after the badgering I got on Twitter.
Yeah,
Jeez.
well,
Jeez.
you try to give me a hard time about Field per usual, and then you get called out.
Yeah,
You
the
know,
Twitter warriors come to your defense.
I mean, I can't help it that you're just wrong, So
I stand by
Yeah.
my decision.
You got
So-
crucified
Yeah.
by NFL Twitter, man. It happens.
yep.
Well, it's no. I didn't get crucified. One dude was proud that he could read, and that was it. Okay.
Hey,
One
reading
guy.
comprehension is key. Reading
One
comprehension
guy was like, "Well, I can read." And I was like, well, "Congratulations, bro! Good bird. I'm so glad."
Yeah,
Hey, listen,
hopefully he passes third grade this time around and can graduate.
I don't know. He's a fan of the Bears.
Well, the whole thing started because we were, obviously I'm a Fields fan and you two are not, which is fine. We can have different opinions. But the key debate that was being had is Justin Fields a top 5 fantasy quarterback next season? And I believe so. I think I have him at 5 right now in my way too early, whatever you want to call them, rankings. And above him I've got, in no particular order, Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, and Hurts. So I just think with his
Seems
rushing,
like a pretty particular order right there. That seems exactly the way it should be, is what you just said.
well, I think the order I've got him is actually Mahomes, Burrow, Hurts, and then Allen. I have to double check that, but I mean, he already was a top 5 quarterback, and I can only see that situation improving. So, for fantasy football purposes, not real NFL purposes, for fantasy football purposes, because fantasy is silly, he's a top 5 quarterback, and that's what I was arguing. And
and somebody got all pissed off that I had not only existing quarterbacks in there, but Stroud and Young both ahead of him in fantasy. And one guy got very upset. And I don't clap back at people that come at me with statistics. And, we can show the tweets. I was very amicable. One guy on there was very nice about it. Was like, look, this is how this works out. This is this, whatever. One guy was like, well, I want to be in your fantasy league because you'll be last because you're a stooge. I can read, bro. And, inviting yourself into our league, I don't think that would be very smart because most of the people in our league are better at it than that guy is. And fact of the matter is, I got the 1 seed, and my guys didn't show up, but I still finished 3rd in the league at a 12. So I got a little bit of knowledge about it.
Probably would have been higher if Cup hadn't gotten injured too.
Oh man, that Cup injury screwed my season so bad. And then Josh
screwed a lot of people.
Nobody showing up in the last 2 weeks. But anywho,
at least you didn't draft Josh Jacobs 101.
Actually, 101.
Jonathan Taylor. I meant. Sorry.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor was. Well, he was the
Jonathan
first
Taylor
pick.
was drafted 101.
He was the first pick in our draft, and stooge.
Shout out, big. Yeah, so we do our first round a little bit differently too. We actually bid fab on like draft position, and then you can pick your guy after you get the draft spot. And the guy in our league bid $100, which was, I think, just under like half of his budget on Jonathan Taylor. And you want to talk about the biggest, not the biggest, one of the biggest disappointments of the fantasy season. Jonathan Taylor, and honestly, that entire Colts offense and that O-line was just abysmal. And hopefully they can shore that up. And I don't know if it starts with the head coach, but we'll see.
Man. All right, well, now that we've handled the Twitter warriors, we will...
Speaking of former Colts head coaches, we got some news and notes.
Right.
We're rolling in.
News and notes we can get to, but Mr. Frank Reich, former Colts head coach who was fired in the season, is now the Carolina Panthers head coach, and I think that's a good hire for him. I think that's a good hire for them. I like Frank Reich personally. I think he's a good coach. I think that what happened in Indianapolis was not necessarily his fault. So I'm glad that he's getting a second chance. And I think that's also our first head coaching hire of the offseason, too. So that's good. Yep. So excited to see what he can do with that Panthers team there. Obviously, no McCaffrey there anymore, but they still have a good run game. Main thing for them is they got to figure the quarterback situation out. So we'll see if they do that via free agency or trade or draft. But that's good news for them.
Super.
Yeah, for sure. I was always a big fan of Frank Reich. I liked that Hard Knock season he had. It's hard to not root for the guy. It's the same thing with the coach over in Detroit. It's like watching those seasons, you really just like those coaches. And
Campbell.
Frank Reich getting another opportunity was really dope. Getting to see him in Carolina, it's nice because personally, I don't think it's the coach in Indy. Obviously there's something that's stopping them from drafting a quarterback. They've actively avoided it for the past few seasons, and it just hasn't worked out. So I think that's a GM or an owner type decision. So I also like Frank Reich getting that opportunity in Carolina for sure.
Yeah, we talked last week, or maybe it was offline, about how certain GMs kind of get in their own way and they try to micromanage their team, and it affects the team. And I think that's part of the situation there with the Colts. Is I think Jim Irsay needs to hire people to do the job and then trust them to do the job and then kind of butt out personally. So
here's looking at you, Jerry Jones.
Yeah, Jerry Jones is another one too.
Good Lord.
More news. Jets are the New York Jets Jets are hiring former Broncos head coach Nathaniel Hackett as their new offensive coordinator. Now, Nathaniel Hackett was an absolutely abysmal head coach, but he was a pretty decent coordinator. He was the OC for Green Bay when Aaron Rodgers had his back-to-back MVP years in 2020 and 2021. So some guys I think are just better coordinators than head coaches, and I think Hackett might be one of those guys. I will also say I'm even more confident now that Aaron Rodgers signs with the Jets in the offseason.
Gross.
Yeah, see, I look at Hackett as kind of a who was the guy? He was the Jets coach. I think he was an OC for Miami, and people thought he was the next big thing, but was terrible. Dather, you remember that guy?
Pick any coach.
Let me see if I can look it up.
Just
I mean, he was
pick
pretty
a
popular. He
Jets.
was a younger guy. He was a coach. This was just a few years ago.
Adam Gase.
Adam Gase, that's it. Yeah, I
Yeah,
see it
that-
being kind of like this. Adam Gase went from OC to head coach, and things kind of collapsed. And that's what I see with Nathaniel Hackett. I think Adam Gase tried to be an OC after again, and it just didn't work. I see it probably working out like that. I'm not high on Nathaniel Hackett, especially after that Broncos season. Maybe one of the worst head coaching starts ever. I don't know that you could really perform worse than that. You've got Russell Wilson as quarterback, and you can't score. You're supposed to be the offensive guy, and you can't score.
Look here. That guy was not accepted by the team because I would bitch slap somebody that was doing high knees on a plane after a game when we're trying to go home and go to sleep, okay? So I'm not going to totally take that on the coach because Russell Wilson's very difficult to deal with, which again we've alluded to in the past that is coaches like Andy Reid, Pete Carroll, those guys can handle that kind of stuff. He was not in a situation as a new head coach to handle that kind of crap, and he doesn't want to step on the toes of people. Do I think he's a better coordinator than a head coach? Absolutely. You see that at every level in football, high school football, college football, USFL, Canadian Football League, NFL, everywhere. There's just guys that are great at being coordinators, and they need to stay that way. Personally, I think that's Dan Quinn. I think he gets another shot at being a head coach, but I think he's just a better coordinator, and Hackett is another example of that.
Well, Dan Quinn's already said he's going to stay in Dallas as the DC, which he should. He's one of the highest paid DCs, so I mean, there's no reason for him to move on. And that Dallas defense is really good, a lot better than the offense. So,
yeah.
I mean, I also feel like Dan Quinn's a little bit overrated as a coordinator as well. I mean, he inherited the Legion of Boom and then came to Dallas with an absolutely perfect scenario. I feel like players succeed despite Dan Quinn, not because of Dan Quinn. And I don't think that Nathaniel Hackett is any different. I think blaming all of that on Russell is unfair because you listen to the way his teammates talk about him. The team loves Russell Wilson. I don't think that it's that they didn't buy into Nathaniel Hackett. I just think that Nathaniel Hackett is just a bad coach.
Yeah, I mean,
Hackett coming after you, bro.
I don't know about Russell Wilson.
I don't have any personal issues against Nathaniel Hackett.
He's coming after you hard. No. It was not Russell Wilson. You suck. Oh, jeez. Okay.
They're going to invest a ton of money into Aaron Rodgers. They're not going to go get him help. They're probably going to trade some stuff away that they probably need. And I just think that it's going to handicap them in the long run.
What help does he need? He's got Garrett Wilson. He's got that running back that I can't think of his name right now.
Brees Hall.
Yeah, Brees Hall. There's some weapons over on the Jets. The Jets were up.
There's definitely weapons, but it's like I don't think Aaron Rodgers is the fix there. But I think you're right, John, that Nathaniel Hackett is going to go after him. I mean, that familiarity is there. It makes sense. The Jets have seemed to be all in on him. I just don't think he's the guy anymore.
Captain
that's really
Ayahuasca is not going to be the answer for anybody. Sorry. His glory days are past. We're seeing Brady decline. You're going to see Rodgers decline. And it's time for them to pull a Peyton and roll on. Let's go make a jingle and cash in on endorsements, guys, because it's time. It's time.
Yeah, let's have Brady join Allstate, and then we'll have Aaron Rodgers join
State Farm.
Liberty Mutual. And then we'll just do an insurance war.
Allstate gets rid of mayhem, there will be riots. That thing has worked for so long.
Didn't Favre sign with the Jets towards the end of his career too?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that Favre did towards the end of his career
that
we probably shouldn't talk about. Let's just say he retired. He retired in Minnesota. That's
fair.
No comment.
Anyway, yeah, and I just want to add one thought into all that, and that, Drew, I know you want to say that Fields is a me over we guy. To me, definitely a me over we guy is Russell Wilson, at least in this Denver situation. I mean, to come in and want your own parking spots, your own office, you're not part of the team at that point, and I think that's part of the problem in Denver, and I don't think they're going to get better until they fix that problem. But we got to move on here. Speaking of Jerry Jones and the Dallas team, they have parted ways with Kellen Moore, their former offensive coordinator, and also announced that Mike McCarthy is going to call plays next season. And Kellen Moore was jobless for all of about 5 minutes because now he is the Chargers OC. Personally, Mike McCarthy calling plays in Dallas, I'm not touching any of those guys in fantasy next year.
What? You don't want Michael Gallup? That'd be great.
I don't want. I mean, the only one maybe is CeeDee Lamb, maybe. But no, I mean, Mike McCarthy, just don't do it, man. Just find an OC, let them call the plays. You're a better head coach than an OC for sure. So, and then I also think that the Chargers' weapons. I mean, I think it's a lateral move. I don't see them getting any better, but I don't think them getting any worse personally. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. And then the last piece of major news we have here is that the Miami Dolphins have hired Vic Fangio as their new defensive coordinator. And I believe Fangio is coming from Denver, right? So yeah, that's some coaching changes. And I'm sure we'll have another episode here in the offseason to kind of dive into the fantasy impact as well as the NFL impact of those. But we'll focus on that. But just wanted to let you guys know that it happened this past week or two. So.
Yeah, and to piggyback on the Dolphins, we were informed this week, I think via like a subtweet kind of thing. You got to look into it, but Tua is still in concussion protocol, and it's been a long time. Like, it's been a while, and they're still going out. And his parents have made announcements that he's going to play football. He's going to do this. We haven't heard anything out of him or his rep, and I think that's pretty telling. 3 concussions in one season is scary. And right now, we're just worried about the health of Tua because outside of, fandom and fantasy and all these things, the kid can ball. There's no question about it that Waddle was better with Tua on the field. There's no question that the Cheetah was better with Tua on the field. So hopefully he gets better. Maybe this sets an example to the NFL of taking time between concussions and player safety, which is what we all hope. Sadly, some of the time it doesn't really work out to be a player safety kind of thing. But shout out to Tua. Hope you get to feeling better, man, and hope to see you next season.
Yeah, all the best to Tua for sure, and speedy recovery for him, and hopefully he can play football again because he's a decent quarterback and he deserves to play. So, and then just other quick injury news: Justin Herbert had surgery to repair a torn labrum in his left shoulder, but he should be fine before OTAs. We'll get into Brock Purdy and the 49ers and what happened with all there, but it was announced that he had a torn, I believe it's UCL, which is, I think it's the ligament that usually requires the Tommy John surgery, and he's, from what I've heard, is going to be out for 6 months. So that's unfortunate for them.
An ulnar nerve ligament, which sounds drastically painful. I was going to say a curse word there, but I don't want to edit that. So
yeah,
it sounds so painful to me, man. That hit. Oh my god.
Yeah,
his arm
that
just
didn't
like crumpled like an accordion. It's awful.
Yeah, that didn't look good.
Yeah, perfect segue into that game. I think sucks that Purdy got hurt. Obviously, I don't think he was looking great up to that point. I mean, neither team really was. Weird injury. Just that swipe down was just enough to pop that nerve. Pretty crazy. Obviously, hopefully this doesn't affect him long term. Obviously pitchers have huge issues coming back from Tommy John. I know that surgery's gotten a lot better over the years, and their return rate's a lot better. So, hopefully he doesn't have any lingering issues. But for me, it's just kind of crazy thinking about it. The 49ers were forced to sort of run the ball when you think back when Kyle Shanahan was on the Atlanta sideline and people were begging them to run the football in the Super Bowl. It's just kind of poetic that it's all come full circle, and now you're forced to run the ball and you lose the game. Just tough, heartbreaking.
Yeah, I'd still say we would have won that if he would have just run the damn ball a few times. But not the game that we wanted to see. We wanted to see them, go toe-to-toe with the Eagles. We wanted to see Purdy kind of ball out a little bit. And I'm not going to take this as a full win. I said he would get a little exposed. He didn't get exposed. He got injured. So we don't really know the extent of what Purdy could have done against the Eagles. They lived in the backfield, though. It didn't matter who was there. The crazy thing is I really wanted to see Christian McCaffrey play quarterback. I wanted to see that so bad, and they got to a point where he had the helmet on with the mic in.
I mean, personally, I think he should have, but
yeah,
I agree.
I mean, who doesn't want to see that? So yeah, I don't think we know what this 49ers team could have done. It sucks. I would not go play quarterback for San Francisco today. So there's just something going on. Let's see, a broken ankle, and a torn ACL. Now we've got an ulnar nerve, and then we got a concussion. I mean, they just can't. The quarterback position's the most important position in football. You can't keep them healthy. You're going to lose games. So sadly, we didn't get the game that we all wanted, but we do hope that everybody that did get hurt, which was like, I don't know, everybody on the 49ers team, because even Bosa got a contact injury outside the field of play because of a late hit from his own teammate.
Yeah, and then
jacked up his knee.
Williams was out there dealing out injuries, tossing people down on the ground like that. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Trent Williams strikes again, punches Richard Sherman in the face after a game. Now he wants to try to horse collar somebody on live TV.
That wasn't even a horse. That was a damn elephant collar. Okay, like he
right.
whipped that kid. Gone. So
yeah, we and just to kind of cap that off, we all picked the Eagles to win, but I think we can all agree that we would have rather seen a more competitive game. So I think it's really unfortunate that the 49ers season ended that way. Maybe not all of us.
No, if it's over at halftime.
Look, I picked them to win by 2 or 3 touchdowns, and y'all gave me nothing but so I'm going to have my little moment. Hey, look, they won by 2 or 3 touchdowns, y'all. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how the Eagles steamrolled them offensively. And that's another thing that I think people aren't talking about is the Eagles put up a lot of points. I mean, there was a drive they scored, and didn't Jalen Hurts run the ball like 6 times in a row?
It was
a
like
read option to the right like 4 or 5 times in a row. I mean, at that point, it's like, what are you doing? You can't even stop.
The commentator said that. The commentator was like, they've literally ran the same play like 8 times. It's just a read option, and he's got it, and they can't figure it out. I don't really know what's going. Like, he was just dumbfounded. They just go read option. You're getting 12 yards a carry. Who cares?
Everybody who had the under on Hurts's rushing prop was sweating that whole drive. But yeah, I mean, the Eagles definitely dominated. I mean, I think, looking at the Chiefs game, which we'll get into here in a sec, I think the Eagles defense just did steamroll them. I think even with Purdy, I'm not sure if Nick would have been wrong that they still would have won by 2 or 3 touchdowns. So, I think the Eagles are definitely the favorite going into the Super Bowl. And I definitely would have loved to have seen more McCaffrey Wildcat snaps. I mean, the thing I just couldn't understand was, you've got Purdy in there, and obviously he can't throw. But if he can't throw, and the other team knows he can't throw, then what are you doing? It almost to me seemed like they just gave up on the game, and they were just like, let's just run this and get out of here because we're not winning it anyway. And to me, that's not good football any week, much less in a conference championship week. So from everything I saw online and on Twitter, I think a lot of 49ers fans were frustrated, and I don't blame them. I mean, they pretty much, after Johnson went out with a concussion, they kind of gave up. And
and in that, you can run empty backfield with CMC, put another tight end on the field if you want another weapon. You can put an extra defender in to try to get him up the field some. There's ways to do that. You could have run 2 running back sets and tried to split that out, try to do a little bit of a triple option kind of thing. But
Juszczyk is the other emergency quarterback. So, 2 running back sets with both of them, and then, one of them can throw the football. So, right. To me, leaving Purdy in there was not a smart decision.
Let's spend 30 seconds on this just as a question that, again, it's another quarterback going down, got a concussion. Do we think it's the helmets, or do we think it's the way the defenders are being taught to tackle now, where you get them around the waist and that causes that whiplash effect on the quarterback?
I think it's both. I speculated for a while now that something changed with the helmets, and they did change the helmets. And I don't think it's the primary cause, but it's definitely, I feel like, a contributing factor because it was the same. He went down in the same way that Tua did. He fell on his butt. He went back and his head hit the turf on the back, and it was the same type of thing. But then the other thing is you see other guys take that kind of hit and they're fine. So I think it's both. I think, these defenders are being taught to tackle the quarterback by just kind of wrapping him up and throwing him down, which I think is leading to more of those. But then I also think, obviously, there's some protection issues, at least in the backside of the helmet, that they got to figure out. So I personally think it's both, and I hope they get it figured out before next season and it may just be, again, just being more prevalent with the whole Tua situation, and just people keeping a closer eye on it. But this is the season, I can't remember more concussions and protocols and things like that.
Yeah, I also think it is contributed to by the fact that they are now reviewing that concussion protocol, and they have a sky judge that's making that decision, like, hey, that guy went down weird, he's acting weird, put him in the protocol. And I think that is leading to more diagnosed concussions. I think it's a combination of that. Obviously, we've talked about the helmets changing. That is a huge factor. I do think that has something to do with it. We've also talked about, like you mentioned, Drew, and like you were talking about, John, we have talked about, the roughing the passer calls have increased completely. That's definitely changing the way that defenders are tackling quarterbacks. And like we said, that is leading to more concussions. We're seeing basically what is a perfect storm of these situations happening. But I do think it is also a huge factor into that is the fact that they're putting people in protocol a lot more now.
Yeah.
That's what happened to Johnson during the game. He was going back in for the next play, and they said, hold on, you need to go to the 10th. The way you went down was weird. You need to go to the 10th. And then he ended up having a concussion. I mean, it's one of those things that's like they're taking it more seriously, I think. So
Which
that's
is good.
More people getting diagnosed. Now, obviously, they're not handling every situation perfectly, but I think all of those things are contributing to just this weird mix of why are so many people getting injured now with this specific injury.
Yeah, I think it's they're paying attention to it more. It just looks like, because I noticed it, because like you said, he did do exactly what Tua did. And I'm looking at the form, and then when you look, I don't know, even 10 years ago, defenders going after quarterbacks, they were wrapping up high, and then everybody would just go down. They're grabbing at the waist and pulling back, which eventually you got to be able to tackle a quarterback. But it just creates this whiplash, and when it bounces off the ground, your head's not meant to do that. So I think it's just one of those weird situations that all of the things, they changed the helmets, the way the tackle is made is different. They're paying attention to it more and pulling people out. So, again, not the way we wanted that game to go. We wanted to see Purdy at least try to do something, and then Johnson, granted, he couldn't take he fumbled a snap, okay? He just went, whoop. But
to be to his credit, I mean, when you're starting your first NFL snaps in the NFC Championship game against that Eagles front seven,
you're going to be nervous.
I don't know that anybody is going to perform much better.
Right.
That guy on Twitter would. That guy on Twitter could read.
Game, I know that we're going to talk about in the Chiefs game the officiating, but I also want to point out the fact that this 49ers game was very poorly officiated as well. A lot of missed calls, a lot of botched calls. We're talking about that miss from Devontae Smith. We're talking about, and you can blame Shanahan for that all you want. Replay officials have access to every angle and should be able to see that. We're also talking about that punt that came off a wire that they were trying to say. I mean, a lot of weird stuff happened in this game as well, not just the Chiefs game. So I just wanted to go ahead and build that foundation, since I know we're going to be talking about it with the Chiefs game, because that's what everybody's talking about. But the officiating in this game, if I was a 49ers fan, I would be pretty upset about.
I was thinking, I think in our group chat, even one of us was like, this is a weird game. This is so strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and speaking of that Chiefs game, we can just segue right on into it.
Yep.
I picked the Bengals, and then with Nick, you picked the Bengals also. Drew, initially you picked the Bengals, but then you switched midweek on Twitter to Kansas City. After that, pretty sure it was after that video of Mahomes from leaving that presser with no limp or anything came out. So
yeah, so full disclosure, I will say, on the last podcast I said Bengals. I was very concerned about the ankle. How many people do you know come back from a high ankle sprain like that? Now, we didn't say that there was a magical syringe, but after seeing him just absolutely have no limp, whatever, there is tweets that I officially changed and said Chiefs are going to win this game. So It's not me coming back after the fact trying to whatever. I put it on record before. But I did say the Bengals would win. But yeah, after that video came out where he did that presser and he was just like, I can walk, it's fine, no problem.
Yeah,
Just had something. Not to mention the massive amount of talking that the entire state of Ohio did.
Yeah, that's actually what I wanted to talk about. And, we can get into the officiating because it was definitely a little sus and questionable in both games. I agree for sure. And, we'll talk about that. The Bengals, I know everybody wants to blame the officiating, but the Bengals couldn't get the job done. They had the 2-minute drill where they could have gone down and won and they didn't. And then even on that botched third down call that was weird, that got redone or whatever with the flag, they still punted the ball. So overall, that didn't really affect the outcome of the game other than I don't think it was any extra time, maybe a few seconds. So I think the Bengals just in the situation, they, in that last penalty where the guy, and I know he felt awful and I feel bad for him, pushing Mahomes out of bounds and got that roughing the passer call, which set them up for the field goal to win. They beat themselves as much as the officiating was bad and suspect. They had the opportunity to win and they didn't. But what I want to say and what I wanted to bring up is that if you didn't believe in bulletin board material before now, you better believe in it now. Because especially watching the post-game stuff with Kelsey telling the mayor of Cincinnati to know your role and shut your mouth, jabroni.
That was awesome. That was great.
And then on top of that, all the guys were saying, Burrow, I think Kelsey was the one who said Burrow had my ass too, so if you don't think that the guys put this stuff up in the locker room and look at it and that drives them, I'm not saying it's the reason they won, but it's definitely a big reason, because you had I think it was Eli Apple and Mike Hilton talking all kinds of smack all week long. And then the Chiefs come out and Apple got I think it was a holding penalty or a PI penalty that set Kansas City up for something or other. So,
it was 2 back-to-back. He got DPI and then he got a hold on the next play and it moved him 30 yards.
Yeah, dude.
And they scored that insane touchdown where Valdez-Scantling was like sitting in the end zone and how Mahomes got that ball into that window. No clue.
Yeah. So
on the late hit on Mahomes, did anybody pay attention to the guy behind the defensive guy? Because Mahomes went forward, the defensive guy went into the bench, and between the bench and the defensive guy that's got to be easily 280, 290 was a human being.
Oh, I did see that,
and I don't know who that guy, I feel so bad for that guy because that dude is in pain today.
He was facing the crowd, and he pushed Mahomes. Mahomes knocked his legs out from under him, and then the defender came and actually ran into the bench, but I think he actually got sandwiched in between that guy and the bench. Yeah. He's hurting.
He's in some pain today.
Hey, Rook, welcome to the NFL.
So, yeah,
if he can kick, Jerry's got a spot for him next year.
For sure. With all the things that I look at on the officiating side of the ball, one that of all the ones that we could argue, that was a late hit. It was dumb. Absolutely. He knew it was dumb. Nobody felt worse about being just in the moment and going, oh, damn, why did I do that? Than that one guy.
Right. And here's the thing, you can't blame Osai for the loss. I mean, it was a crappy penalty, but at the end of the day, you guys shouldn't have been in that situation. I think with the officiating, the things are not mutually exclusive. The Bengals played a bad game. The officiating was also bad. Those two things can both be true at the same time. Yeah. And I think they are. I mean, I don't think the Bengals played really well. I mean, defensively, they played pretty good. They were able to hold the Chiefs to a relatively low amount of points. However, the Chiefs were out basically every single wide receiver on their roster. Apart from Valdez-Scantling. And I think, didn't Kelsey go out at one point too?
For 1 or 2 drives, yeah.
Right. And so, in those situations, you had a lot of opportunities to succeed, and you failed. Like we talked about the 2-minute drive and things like that. I think the refs played a big part, and I think the officiating absolutely should be scrutinized. They were bad. However, the Bengals were also bad. Joe Burrow didn't look like Joe Burrow. He had a couple drives where he kind of flashed a little bit of, hey, look, here's what we can do. But, they just seemed overmatched from the get-go. I feel like if the Chiefs were 100%, it probably wouldn't have been that close of a game.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was the tale of the tape to me. One quarterback had all of his weapons. He had Boyd, he had Higgins, he had Chase, he had Mixon, who did not do jack. You know, he had everything at his disposal. Now, he was getting pressured a lot. Kansas City got a ton of pressure.
Yeah, they were down, 2, 3 offensive linemen? So I think it is worth mentioning that the Bengals were also not healthy. But at the same time, you still had all of your weapons.
Patrick Mahomes in the second half was throwing to like Richie Rich and Gumby and I mean
Stretch Armstrong.
Like who besides Scantling, who are these people? We hadn't heard of them the whole time. You know, you don't think Kadarius Toney is going to leave. You don't think Hardman's going to go out. You don't think that Kelsey's going to sit for 2 drives. Now, they didn't move the ball, which in the third quarter I said, Kansas City can't move the ball. This is, in our group chat. But that's the tale of the tape between the 2 quarterbacks. One quarterback had everything, couldn't move the ball. And one quarterback forced the ball to move with what he had. And that did the game.
Yeah, I mean, Burrow's 2 interceptions didn't help them at all in their situation.
That hurt.
So, that was definitely big time. I hate to say momentum changing, but they were. Those were big time plays that I think swung the game in Kansas City's favor. So, but Kansas City got the win. Eagles got the win. So that means we have a Kansas City Philadelphia Super Bowl.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, John retweeted he quote tweeted and disagreed with it. The dumbest tweet I've ever seen in my friggin' life.
Yeah.
Somebody tweeted out that crowd noise should be a 15-yard penalty and that NFL fans should understand and have decorum at the game. And I'm looking directly in the camera for this, and this is totally worth me getting bleeped, okay? Let me tell you something. As a football fan of all levels, if you think crowd noise is a problem, go f*** yourself. It's absolutely part of the game. It's fun. They're entertained. They're entertaining. They get paid to be entertaining. They get paid to play a fantastic sport. And if my team's winning, I want to go nuts. It's time for me to enjoy. Tickets are expensive to NFL games. And if I want to enjoy it, as long as I'm not causing anybody else, I'm not spilling drinks on people, I'm not sick, I'm not doing anything besides yelling, get out of here, bro. Don't go to a game. If you don't like crowd noise, don't go to a game.
Yeah, I think exactly what I tweeted when I retweeted that was I said, imagine going into Arrowhead or Lincoln Financial and telling everybody to be quiet.
Yeah.
It's just not happening, dude. Especially on Lincoln Financial.
This isn't golf.
And I even thought about...
We're not clapping on the sidelines. We're screaming. We're cheering. Like you said, NFL tickets are expensive. I went to a Falcons game this past year. I paid $400 for 5 tickets. That's it. I mean, it's like I'm not paying $100+ a ticket, basically, to go sit there like a church mouse.
Yeah, no. And then when you said going into Arrowhead, I thought about, even at a lower level, imagine going into the Big House. Imagine going into Tuscaloosa. Imagine going into Mississippi State with those damn cowbells. Okay? Imagine going to Sanford Stadium and it not being 92,000 ruckus as hell, badass, loud people. That's part of the game, bro. And the players understand that. So this isn't on the players. They know what they're dealing with. But that one person, tell me you don't watch football without telling me you don't watch football. Get out of here.
Brain dead tweet for sure. I do want to point out, though, this is actually the first time in NFL history that 2 black quarterbacks are going to be starting.
Yeah, for sure.
First time ever.
That's huge.
I think that's an amazing. Obviously, it's awful because it hasn't happened yet. But I do think that's an amazing thing, and I did want to make sure that was underlined.
Yeah, no, we have that in our notes here for sure because I wanted to make sure it was underlined too because that's a big thing. That's huge, and like you said, it's unfortunate it hasn't happened until now, but at least it's happening now. And then, of course, the other big headline. I don't know if you two know this, if you have seen it on Twitter or anywhere else. Did you know that there's 2 brothers that are going to be playing in the Super Bowl?
Get out of here. What do you mean? Who could those be?
Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts are brothers?
You got it.
Didn't you hear? Peyton got a 1-day contract with the Chiefs and Eli got a 1-day contract with the Eagles to start in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they're going to play one snap and then back out. Yeah.
Yeah, they had.
So they're not coaching the Pro Bowl flag football game. They're coaching the Super Bowl again.
Yeah, so they both have 2 rings, and Arch
Yeah.
made them settle this debate because it's just tearing them apart at Thanksgiving.
Right. No, Jason and Travis Kelce, for those who don't know that we're being facetious. The center for the Eagles is Jason Kelce, and obviously Kansas City tight end Travis Kelce. So the Brother Bowl, and I'm sure their podcast, New Heights, shout out, will be going off the chain this week. So, but yeah, Super Bowl, Kansas City Chiefs versus the Eagles. It is on Sunday, February 12th. For those who have not looked it up or don't know, starts at 6:30 kickoff. And this year it's in State Farm Stadium in Glendale on Fox for all those who are going to tune in. I know the 3 of us will be for sure. And I'll just start out and say, I think this is going to be a good game. I think if the Chiefs can get healthy, it will be an even better game. And I'll be honest, I was really conflicted with who to pick here. I had the Eagles at first because I just thought that with the Chiefs' health that they were going to I thought the Chiefs were not going to be able to get it done. And that's actually what the betting lines are telling us right now. So right now, again, this is kind of early, but right now, the line on the Super Bowl, it opened with the Chiefs as 2-point favorites, and now the Eagles are 1.5-point favorites. 63% of the bets are on the Eagles, as well as 57% of the money. So even, there's a slight lean in the Eagles' favor with the bets, but I mean, even people, I think, are torn on, who they can see pulling out. And for it to be that close, I mean, I think it's going to be a good game. Personally, give me the more efficient pass offense over the excellent run game. So I think the Chiefs are going to win. And my best bet for the Super Bowl is that the Chiefs are going to cover the spread. So.
Wow. There's disdain from old Nicky P down there. What's he thinking?
I mean, I'm thinking, like I did last week, Eagles roll, man. I mean, the 49ers have a better defense than the Chiefs. We saw the Eagles had no problem scoring against them. And I think we saw Cincinnati, who has a far inferior defense to Philadelphia. I think we can all agree on that. Was able to have pretty much whatever success they wanted against Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, they had some troubles. Obviously, they did give up some points. But, I mean, the Eagles are a better defense. I think they've played better defenses on the offensive side of the ball. I just think they have too much. I just don't think the Eagles really have holes anywhere. I mean, Hassan Reddick lived in the backfield. He murdered the 49ers alone. I mean, his pressure alone took out Purdy. It got another forced fumble. I mean, didn't he? I think he was also involved on the fumble that Johnson had when he bobbled the snap. I think Hassan Reddick was the one that recovered that one. So, I mean, there's just too much on that Eagles defense. I think it'll be a good game, but I also think it's going to be like the 49ers game. I think it'll be closer, and then as the Eagles start to pull away more and more and more and more, it becomes clear that they're the better team. They're going to win the Super Bowl this year. Celebrate, Philly fans, even though you guys kind of suck. You have to get better. You have to get better. You treat opposing fans like dogs. You're horrible people at games. This is not all Philly fans. I'm not talking all Philly fans, but you know who you are. You've got to be
making
better.
A lot of friends.
You are an embarrassment to the entire National Football League. Do better. But Eagles win.
So I'm the tiebreaker, huh? Oh man. What I think this comes down to, and for some reason the coach for the Eagles is slipping my mind.
Nick Sirianni.
Sirianni. Oh, I kept trying to go Shanahan. I was like, that's not right. Sirianni. Here's what I'm looking at. Jalen is not a better quarterback. The Eagles have the better defense. You look at a lot of things. Usually when Vegas has it under 3 points, it's kind of a crapshoot. What I look at is experience. Big game experience. It's the same thing I said in the national championship. Georgia had it, TCU didn't. This is the same thing. Andy Reid has been a coach for years. Sirianni's just getting ready to go to the big game. The experience is going to take over. Mahomes' will is going to take over. And if he can get Hardman or Tony back, Kansas City by 7.
By 7? Wow. No. I think they cover, but not by that much.
No. I mean, even if they get Hardman back, I don't think experience matters. I mean, a lot of this Eagles team was in the Super Bowl a few years ago. So, I mean, it's not like the Kansas City Chiefs have so much experience over them. I don't think that'll be a factor in this game.
Oh, and coaching it does.
I mean, sure.
Coaching experience is
Sirianni
invaluable.
just steamrolled a team who hadn't lost in 12 games. I don't think he cares about the Kansas City Chiefs who just hobbled into Burrowhead and barely escaped with their lives. I think we also need to talk about, Kansas City talking crap after the game. You barely won a game by 3 points in the very last seconds of said game, marred by officiating issues. So let's all pump the brakes on the Kansas City hype train. I think we're giving them too much credit.
Didn't you hear the NFL's rigged? It's going to be Kansas City. It's basically the new WWE, bro.
I tweeted after that third down botch penalty, I was like, if Kansas City wins, the NFL's rigged crowd is going to go nuclear. And I'll be damned if 10 minutes after that game ended, it was trending on Twitter.
It was great. I loved it. Oh, man. So, well, we've got two for Kansas City. One of us has really went out on a limb. One of us is like, no, they might win by a point if they're healthy, kind of.
And they're going to cover.
Like,
they're going to cover.
Bro.
So
Eagles by 50 down there.
They're going to cover. They'll win by at least 2.
Eagles by 24.
24.
Are insane.
I'll say Kansas City by 3.
Okay. So there that is, and obviously we don't believe that the NFL is rigged. It is not the new WWE, but just to have a little bit of outside the NFL talk, one of the big 3 events for the WWE happened this past weekend as well. So say goodbye to old Nikki P, and just for me and John the Stone here, we will say one of the big 3 events, and that to me is the Royal Rumble, Mania, and then Survivor Series. Those are kind of my big 3. SummerSlam is usually pretty big, but not, usually it's those 3.
I mean, if you're asking me what was big in the late 90s, early 2000s when we were watching, I can tell you. But in the last 20 years, I don't know.
that's still when I say the Royal Rumble, you know what it is.
I know the Rumble and I know WrestleMania. That's it.
Yeah, so that happened this past weekend, Saturday night, and a couple of things to talk about. One, Cody Rhodes won, so we're going into the Rhodes dynasty kind of thing, and they've set up a dynasty family versus a dynasty family because Roman Reigns, being a multi-generational talent, has held the title. Rhodes, being a multi-generational talent, going up against him at Mania is pretty fun. His leaving and came back, his character is now the American Nightmare, which I think is genius, playing off of Dusty's American Dream. I love the pitch. They're giving him a big push. The crowd reaction was really good. And another little piece of NFL in the WWE was Pat McAfee showed back up, which I absolutely love his announcing on SmackDown. He really gets to kind of get a little bit more wild with it than he does on College Game Day or on his show. They get pretty nuts. But him getting back, I think, is a healthy thing to get fans that love the NFL to watch something outside of NFL season. But give me your take on this, because this hasn't happened since the 80s. Roman Reigns has now spent 876 days as champion. So he's been over 2 years. And I remember back when we were watching in high school, we were like, oh yeah, we saw the 4-year reign of Hulk Hogan, and then Bruno Sammartino and Bob Backlund and all these, now for everybody, the fabulous Moolah has the longest one at 10,000 days. So I'm not discrediting her title reign, okay? But we always said that there's no way they do that with a current champion. Things change, how much changes in a year, much less 2, and now they've rode this. I don't know if they continue it through this year's Mania, but he's like 4th outside of NXT championships, which have all been in the last 5 years. So, but Roman Reigns at 876 days, the media part of that is interesting. What is your thoughts on them keeping somebody champion that long when way back we were like, man, there's, even Cena's longest championship reign was 400 days.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if they find somebody who is completely bought in and wants to be the face of their company and the face of their what they're doing, then they're going to keep them in that position as long as possible. And I think from what the little bit I know from in clips I've seen of Roman Reigns, I think he's that guy. So I think as long as he's still bought into what they're doing, and I know things are a little weird with the WWE right now. I think Vince McMahon tried to sell it to Saudi Arabia or something like that. So
he did. So one of the Middle Eastern trust funds bought the company and reinstituted him as CEO, which I'm not a giant fan. Like, he stepped down for reasons. Don't backdoor your way into being CEO again. But being involved with that business for as long as he has, I don't think he knows how to do anything different. So, just an interesting tidbit, something for us to discuss. But Cody Rhodes won the Rumble this year.
I was going to say, we'll probably make that a little segment at the end as outside the NFL segment and talk about something like that every week. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, just a little bit of something for everybody. If you want to see a great behind-the-scenes kind of thing, Michael Cole was on the Pat McAfee show on 1/30, the Monday. So January 30th episode of Pat McAfee. You can go check that out on YouTube. Michael Cole was on there, and it gives you a cool behind-the-scenes kind of look, because Michael Cole has been there 30 years, knows pretty much everything that's going to happen. And it was the first time in forever that they got to surprise him, because the idea of putting McAfee on commentating for the Rumble happened 36 hours before the event. So they were able to keep it from Michael Cole. They've turned out to be really good friends. I love what Pat McAfee's doing. I'm really happy for that guy. Honestly, living the absolute best life and getting crossover, I think it helps the NFL. I think it helps WWE, and it absolutely helps his show on YouTube. So go check that out. Any departing wisdom on anything, because it will be a while before we talk about post Super Bowl, given it's 2 weeks or 12 days.
We haven't decided what we'll talk about next week, but we will still find some sort of NFL related topic to talk about. So don't worry about that. We're still going to keep going during the off season. We'll have lots of things to talk about, and we're also going to go to 2 episodes. So we will be back in your ears and on your screens on Thursday. Like we said, we're going to draft something. We'll make it a fun time. But I think this is the format we're going to stick with. We're going to do kind of a more traditional episode on Tuesdays, and then on Thursdays, we'll do a fun little draft, or maybe talk about our top 10s and things like that. So just be on the lookout for that. And it'll be a good time.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. The more analytical, for everybody out there, the more analytical episodes will be on Tuesdays. The draft will happen to keep us. OTAs will happen, all that kind of stuff. But we will talk about baseball. When the Stanley Cup playoffs happen, we'll be talking about hockey. I love hockey. Go Preds.
And Golden Knights.
That's okay. I don't have a major problem with them. It's basically Pens fans, which is Pittsburgh. We just don't like Pennsylvania down here. That's apparently the thing. So, but keep tuning in, guys. It is going to be a fun ride, and I'm so glad you were here with us early. And thanks to John the Stone jumping in.
Yep, tell your friends.
Yeah, tell everybody. Get everybody. Grab their phone and go into their Spotify and subscribe to it.
Apple Podcasts.
Or Apple, or YouTube. Or
Google Podcasts, or Amazon Music,
or Amazon Music, or any of the other things that we're on. But go in there and take their phone. Look, I know some of y'all are going through your significant other's phone, okay? And I'm not judging you for it. All I'm asking you to do is open their music app and follow us.
If you're there anyway.
Easy peasy, right there. It's like 3 clicks, bro. So thanks, guys. We will be back Thursday. Nikki P will join in. We'll try to get it in a little bit earlier so everybody can hang out for the whole episode. Probably Thursday episodes will be a little bit shorter than the analytical ones from here. And
I don't know. We can talk a lot. So
yeah, we can. We talk a lot. So if you guys have an idea of something for us to talk about, you want us to talk about a little nostalgia or anything, throw that in the comments, guys. Let us know. We're always here. I check all the comments almost on a 3-hour loop. So just let us know. Talk to us. If you want to be on the show, then, send us an email. You can send it to bropinions2009 at gmail.com. Maybe it'll work you in, get you to talk, and have fun. whatever. And if you don't,
If
then
you have
just,
questions,
yeah,
send
just keep
those there
listening.
too.
Just keep listening, bro. That's all we're
If we get enough, maybe we'll do a mailbag episode. Who knows?
Ooh, who sponsors the mailbag? That'll be fun. The U.S. Postal Service.
Not
Just
them.
kidding. It'll never get here. Okay. All right, guys. We're gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna throw this on YouTube. John the Stone will have it on Spotify and all those other places. That's obviously how you're listening. So I don't know why I'm talking. Sorry about it. But we'll be back Thursday, guys. Fam Jam. Shout out to John the Stone. Shout out Nikki P. And shout out to all the people that got injured in all of those games because there were so many we cannot list them individually. Hope you all get well soon. We're going to get the fuck out of here. Fam Jam, we're out.
Later.